working through things with enthusiasm and hard work, it does allow you to navigate the inevitable ups and downs of our industry and just life.
Thomas, it's so nice to see you. Finally, how are you?
Finally. Yes, I know. We weren't able to chat when we were both at the brand new conference first round in New York, but we're making it happen regardless. So,
It's happening. We're live. It's all good. And thoroughly enjoyed your first round presentation. I thought it was brilliant. Absolutely loved it. Congratulations.
oh yeah, it was very fun. I always love doing any of the kind of things with Armin and Irony, and they're they just put on such an amazing event. So it was great to be there.
Yeah, it was brilliant. First on stage as well. Tough gig.
Always, first or last, I feel like, I'll take either. It's,
Yeah,
I think those are the prime spots.
I think so. I think so. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to this chat all about change. But first of all, by way of an introduction, you are global principal at Wolff Olins, and I would love to know what that actually means. If you can give us a bit of a roundup of your role.
Yeah, sure. As global principal at Wolf Olins, obviously my background's in design, but I kind of oversee all the creative efforts at Wolf Olins globally. I'm based out of our Los Angeles office, but that means kind of overseeing everything in our New York studio, overseeing everything in our London studio as well, with some of our global principals over there. And so, yeah, it's kind of been pretty exciting past 3 years to kind of be in that role and shaping kind of the future of creative at Wolf Olins.
Incredible. I didn't realize actually that you oversaw even the work in London.
Yeah.
You must be exhausted.
No, I mean, luckily we have a global creative council at Wolf Olins that includes myself, Wayne Deacon, Emma Barrett, and Jan Newman. So the four of us kind of help to adjust across time zones as needed. So it's very fun and it's great to work with them every day. But yeah, I'm glad to be involved in work across the globe. It's part of the reason why I love the role so much.
Yeah, dream team. You're in good company. So you've been at Wolf Olins, you just mentioned there for 3 years, and previously you were ECD at Sweet Green, and prior to that, you spent 7 years as partner and creative director at Collins as well. So you have such an impressive, career, obviously. And we're here to talk about change, constant creative change.
Sure.
I suppose if we're to zoom out and look at your career as a whole, can you pinpoint the most epic and distinctive moment of change that you've experienced in that time?
Um, I think looking back, listen, there's been a lot of moments of change. I think it's impossible to tell at the time how they shape you. I think, you know, I'm sure a lot of people have experienced this. I've been passed over for jobs, haven't gotten credit for work. I've taken unpaid internships. There's been times I've contemplated kind of the balance between my passion, what I'm doing with a creative career, the pressures that can come along with that. I mean, I even think back to my earliest days. I mean, I had 17 jobs before I decided becoming a designer was going to be the thing I did, including, do you guys have Chili's in the UK? Do you have that?
Not yet.
Um, it's a fast casual American staple restaurant. I wouldn't put it on the pinnacle of Tex-Mex dining, but it certainly gets close. And I think all of that can shape kind of your work ethic. You have to have a healthy sense of humor, maybe gratitude, resilience. And I think all of that is kind of the things that maybe are a lot of little moments, maybe not the biggest moments that help shape your career, right? Because looking back, I can see all those pieces kind of adding up like Lego bricks, right, to create the full experience. But I can't say, wow, that's the big bang moment. Everything shifted. I just don't think At least that's not how my career has gone. It's been shaped by a ton of little moments along the way that I think then creates kind of the person that you are now.
I love to hear you acknowledge all of those 17 jobs before going into design because we often kind of gloss over that life experience as being so pivotal, shaping our career. People, when you ask people, when did you start, in work, then they go straight to the junior designer role and forget, all of the work experience before then. So,
Oh,
yeah, it's nice to
no.
hear you
No,
acknowledge
I
that.
record stores, I worked at a seafood restaurant, I was an ice cream scooper, I worked in a card store, where I was a Pokemon trainer. I was a landscaper for, a few years, which is just backbreaking. It really makes, graphic design seem, easy comparatively. Yeah, there's been a lot of jobs.
I mean, they all sound really fun when you say them like that. Have you had any bad jobs?
Uh, I don't wanna badmouth any of them, they're all part of my resume. What was a really difficult job? The ice cream scooping job was very difficult, and I'll tell you what, you're sticky all the time. Just your arms, your legs, your everything is sticky, and then you're just cleaning up stickiness when you're mopping the floors. It's just not a very it seems great because I love ice cream. I love every flavor you could possibly imagine. Oreo is definitely, by far the top. However, as a job, um, not glamorous.
Fair play. I mean, I love to hear that because actually my first job was in an ice cream parlor, so
You
to
know,
know
you know this
yeah,
sticky
those
feeling then, it's
sticky
terrible.
moments.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to know that such great things can come of that industry. Look at us now. I love it, love it. And then, I mean, skip forwards presumably a few years to your
Sure.
role as partner and creative director at Collins. And then you went in-house, as a creative leader, and then you've again gone back into agency, which I think is a wonderful route and perhaps not one we see that often that people would go from sort of agency to in-house. What was that a very conscious thing that you wanted in-house experience before going back, or was it just the opportunity at the moment?
I think, one of the benefits to agency side, um, is you get to kind of satisfy this intense curiosity that you have across industries, right? And I think when it comes to, I presented sandals at first round, right? I had no idea what all inclusive Caribbean travel and a hospitality brand that's across all the islands in the Caribbean would be like. And then you get to kind of have this um, insider knowledge that's impossible to see unless you're on the agency side. And you get these kind of glimpses and moments across industry, whether it's, something for like Twitch, or, even thinking about kind of when we rebranded one of the world's biggest advertising agencies in Ogilvy at the time at Collins. You get to see how these things operate, how they work, what makes them tick. And if you're a curious person, which I think most designers are, um, it's it's super rewarding and it's really engaging. And I think when I made the choice to switch over to in-house and to move to Sweet Green, we were already working on the rebrand at the time when I was at Collins, and we were working with a fabulous team there, working directly with the co-founders, specifically Nathaniel Rue, who's the chief brand officer there. And I just fell in love with the product, the experience, the values the company holds. My mom's a biologist and has always been very hyper aware of um, the world in which we live in, how we operate inside of it. Um, Even thinking about the food, the types of food we eat, how that affects the environment directly. and I saw so many similarities with my upbringing and what they were trying to achieve as a business and a brand, um, that there just felt this kind of, magnetism or, like, gravitational pull that said, gut instinct wise, this is something I have to do. You know, I've obviously worked on a lot of different companies and brands and things like that, but when this just felt like there was so much harmony between my personal values and what the company stood for, it felt like I had to maybe make the shift, and this would be the one that I um, would try, I suppose.
That's wonderful. I love to hear when the stars align like that. And I did a bit of reading about Sweet Green before, and they're obviously so strongly values led. I really got that, which is a wonderful thing if that really spoke to you as well.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
what what did you learn during that time about your way of working or your process? Did you have to relearn completely? In terms of getting to that depth with the brand?
I do think there's obviously a learning curve with any job. As I mentioned, having the other 17, you gotta get used to the pivots between landscaper and card shop worker or Pokemon trainer are quite massive. The divides there, not a lot of skills that are transferable, but I do think, there's a lot from the agency side that you can bring um internally, but there's so much that you don't know about a company. You don't know how it works, how it operates on the day to day, all the different teams you might not be exposed to, right? Getting kind of thrown into the world of culinary and, excuse me, supply chain and even thinking about all the people that work in our restaurants every single day, what they have to do, how you can help them, how design can create a better environment for them to work in, how you can create all these small, kind of delightful customer experiences across the kind of in-store experience, right? There's so many things that even when you think about a brand identity system or you think about a new app, a new product design, a new website, whatever are some of the things that you get to work on as an agency often, um, so much of those are bigger moments, I
Yeah.
suppose, but, the kind of day to day of what you're trying to do for your customers and for the business and for, um, the people on your team, the people at the HQ, all of that stuff you just don't have as much exposure to. And so when you go inside of a company, um, it's very exciting because there's so many things that you have to learn. And then, as you kind of understand how the company operates, you start to pick it up. It becomes kind of second nature. You can start to kind of figure out, okay, how can I start to add value every single day to what we're doing here? And how do I kind of use my talents to arguably meet what our mission is that the founders have created, right? And I think that is probably what I found most exciting when I got there. Once I found like, okay, I understand how I can use my abilities, my talents to help kind of move this company where everyone wants it to go.
In terms of how you've approached your career then, have have you are you the sort of person that has like a 5-year plan or you know where you want to be in 10 years? Is that your style?
I No, I'm not a person that says, "Oh, this is where I wanna be in 5 years. This is where I wanna be in 10 years." I tend to react more on, things that pique my curiosity. I try to not predict the future, and I try to not predict, my own future. Um, and so generally, I think I use, more things I feel inspired by or things that I feel generally curious about to help guide my kind of year over year decision making or career decision making. It's part of the one of the biggest reasons I joined Wolf Olins. Just it sounded very when I spoke to Sarah Ashman, our CEO, just I was very curious as to what she wanted Wolf Olins to kind of be and where she saw it going, and that piqued my curiosity, and that's why I'm here today, right? So I think Yeah, I try to generally follow more of a gut instinct mentality when planning my future than I would say, this is what I'm going to achieve in 10 years, 10, 15 years, 20 years, all that kind of stuff.
I love gut instinct mentality as a rebrand of winging it. Always working. Incredible. So, I mean, you must be very adaptable then, right? To have this intuitive approach to your own career. Have there been some times throughout your work life where you've had to respond to change that's forced upon you, like economic change or client change or anything that you've had to really work hard to respond to?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think you mentioned, technology changes, economic changes. I mean, I've now been in the industry long enough to have gone through, 2 recessions, a pandemic, multiple technology shifts, obviously, early internet, now AI. And I think my tendency, and I don't know if this will work for everyone, but my tendency is to put your head down. And I think if you put your head down, you work harder, you work at the problems that you're trying to solve, um, generally you get through it. Maybe that's like my sports background comes through growing up playing basketball or football or baseball, but I think outworking and pushing your own limits to what you actually think is possible, I think it's a good thing. Um, it's gotten me through a lot of dramatic, or I think a lot of change, um, and hard pivots in my life. Um, but I think if you're able to kind of work through them, persevere, um, have a bit more resilience when it comes to these kind of like larger or smaller life moments, um, I think people on my team, I think I'm like perversely optimistic, but I think just like working through things with kind of enthusiasm and like hard work, it does allow you to navigate the inevitable ups and downs of our industry, and just life. I think you understand that these things come in waves and you're able to kind of ride those waves because you've seen the patterns before. And I think that designers inherently are also quite good at understanding and seeing patterns and seeing how things are going to operate. It's kind of what we're trained to do, right? Is like have this spidey sense of advanced pattern recognition in a way. And I think that that helps a lot of times you respond to the shifting dynamics that are going on around you.
Yeah, that really speaks to me. I completely agree that, there's a certain work ethic that will see you through tough times, right? It's that approach that you've sometimes got to get your head down, work hard, work through it, and you'll get out the other side. I'm going to ask you, when do you know when it's time for a change?
Oh, don't you just know? Isn't it just a gut instinct thing? I don't know. I think it's time for a change, at any point in your life. I think you understand that whether it's a personal decision or a professional decision, you can collect all the data and inputs you want. You can talk to your friends, you can talk to your dog, you can talk to your friend at a pub. It doesn't matter. You can talk to your mom, your great aunt, whoever. You can get all that data. At the end of the day, it's your decision. It's a gut decision that you need to make when a change needs to be made. Um, if that's, um, the role we talked about earlier. When did I know it was a time to explore going in-house at Sweet Green? I just knew. It's a feeling. It was this kind of innate draw to something, and so I think when it's time to make any kind of change, whether that's personally or professionally in your life, and yeah, eventually you just got to go with your gut.
There's a lot to be said for that. I appreciate that. Um, and so throughout your career then, are there any particular I know you're intuitive with how you move and you make the most of opportunities as they come, but are there any principles or behaviors that you keep for yourself?
Probably honesty. I think, honesty can get you through a lot of tough moments and tough conversations. Um, I think it allows you to get through adversity faster, and it allows you to first be honest with yourselves about whatever occurred or shortcoming or success, or, it can play both sides. And then when it comes to difficult conversations you might be having with other people in, on your team or in the industry or whatever, just being honest and not trying to sugarcoat things, I find gets to solutions much quicker. It's, if everyone's tap dancing around the challenges you're facing or anything like that, um, it feels like a drawn out process when you could have just been honest from the beginning, and it makes things a lot easier. You find clarity quicker, and and truthfully, at the end of the day, while it might be tougher in the moment, in the long run, I think people appreciate honesty,
Yeah.
and so I think trying to be honest is something that I've always tried to keep as maybe a value that I continually bring forward. And then maybe the second part is the perverse optimism I mentioned earlier. I feel like I can see the best in everything. And I really do try to say I really actually do believe that um anything that kind of comes your way, there is like a gratitude you can have for it. And that's like personally and professionally, um, because it's kind of it's a gift to do what we do. And the ability to be able to kind of celebrate that, despite any circumstances on a day-to-day basis, like we're in a creative industry. This is a fun thing that you get to do every single day. Um, I have really close friends that were, doctors during COVID, and hearing about their experiences and what they had to go through. And we're getting to use creativity in our day to day to solve problems for people. I cannot think of something that is more fun than that. So how could I not have gratitude and kind of an appreciation and be optimistic for whatever we were doing? Um, because it just feels so fortunate as a creative kind of career path to to lead. So yeah,
That's such a wonderful perspective. In terms of honesty out of interest, is that do you get that like in terms of feedback from your sort of peers in leadership? Do you because I often hear that people in such senior roles don't really get that feedback loop in the same way you do when you're learning. Do you get that in your team?
I have very close people, I think, on the team that I rely on to give me that feedback loop. I think, I mean, Wolf Olins is also like people have like I think a perspective that we're some giant company. We're actually not, it's um we're under 200 people. So it's like not hard to know everyone and their dogs, right? It's not like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I'm a 5,000 person company. And so I think you develop a lot of close friendships, you develop a lot of close bonds. And yeah, you hope that everyone can be honest with each other about various things that are going on in the world, in the company, in their personal lives, whatever they're willing to share, kind of thing. So yeah, I do
Yeah.
trust that people are not, catering to you for any one reason or another.
Nice, nice. I mean, it like you say, it's not a like humongous team, but you are still leading a team of elite creatives. In terms of your like leadership style then, what do you do to keep people having that honesty, optimism, resilience when you do have to change. If something, things go wrong, projects are tough, clients are tricky sometimes, all that good stuff. How do you support people through that? What's your style?
I believe that creativity happens in conversation. And I think I try to provide an environment where everyone feels like they can have a voice, contribute, live sketch things. Um, I think it's important to get everyone feeling like this is a fun environment, let the air out of the room. If people are feeling too tense, too stressed, too um, that that there's too much pressure on them to deliver on something, I never feel like that yields the most creative results. So, how can you decompress the room, I suppose, as you're working through a problem or solution? How do you encourage people to bring their unique perspectives, their voices into the mix? How do you allow for enough time to think together, then go away and come back, think together again, go away and come back, and create that kind of relationship that um, will ultimately yield the best work? I think those are some of the things that I've found to be useful. Um, Because you need time to talk things through. You need time to explore each other's visions of what the thing is that you're trying to solve. You need, um, time to, um, understand the perspectives to get or understand everyone's unique perspective in order to create a shared perspective. And I think um, that ultimately is creating that environment that I talked about earlier. And I think that has yielded interesting results. I think, and every team, and I think that's also why um, my work potentially doesn't have a style to it. Because I think that it's not just about what my opinion or my aesthetic sensibilities or preferences are. It's about what is right for the problem that we're solving and what the best idea on the table is, and how do we all create something um, that solves that together.
I feel like I'm getting a real peek behind the curtain at and some clues about your creative process there. Has your approach to or has do you have a creative philosophy and has that evolved?
I don't think it's really evolved. I definitely think there are things that I've always thought about with the work that I do. I think a high sensibility of craft at scale is always something that I've been interested in. Um, the idea of taking the value and the principles that design creates and applying those to the biggest challenges that exist is probably why I'm in the branding industry. Or as I became partner at Collins and then moved to Sweet Green, and then now here at Wolff Olins, I actually had my first daughter during that span, and then have had my second. And this is going to be a roundabout answer, but it's going to get there, I promise. Um, I think having kids fundamentally has changed the way that I lead, or the way that I view the world, and the way that I think about design. Because they've taught me so much about patience. Um, I think, um, listen, I lived and worked in New York for like 15 years. It's not necessarily the most patient city. And, I think there's an impatience with wanting to move fast, with wanting to create more things with high craft at scale, like I mentioned. And but when I had kids, I think that there was just this newfound patience that I had for solving problems, whether that was with your kids or professionally, finding more of a sense of empathy in all the different situations, really seeing it from somebody else's side, thinking about the language of what we say to each other much more intentionally. Um, because, it's not what you say, it's your tone, it's actively listening to them, it's understanding your needs. All of this can actually be applied to your team and clients as well. And understanding what motivates your kids or like how they view the world or how they're going to understand or not understand a certain situation. And so much of that, I think, has shaped how I feel about my creative career or how I approach things differently in my creative career. And I think that was an interesting shift, maybe versus just like my internal philosophies or things like that. Maybe the craft at scale thing has always been a part of me, but I think that kids have generally shaped the way that I approach creativity as a job or being a creative person as a job.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And I mean, speaking about curiosity being like a skill, kids are the most curious of us all, aren't they? So that must be really amazing to see that as well. Are they creative, your daughters?
I think yes, my one daughter likes to come in here, and she's like, "Dad, I'm gonna draw a logo." And then she typically just draws a circle, which in
Ah,
fairness, a circle is a lot of logos, that exist in the world, and so
yeah.
she's got modernist sensibilities, but, I think, having creative daughters is very interesting, and what your point about curiosity is something that I find, really funny about kids, and it was one of the things when my first daughter, Kenna, was 2. She, um, she was just kind of, speaking and, asking questions about things, between 2 and 3, they're very curious, and, she would she would just incessantly ask why,
Oh,
it could be
good
about any
strategist.
yeah, it could be about anything, right? It could be about, do monsters exist? You know, how Well, maybe at night. Well, they're in the movies. Why are they in closets? And do they all have hair? Why do they have hair? And it's like you find yourself as a parent sitting there being like, you can't just say, I don't know. You have to really think, well, why would a monster have hair? Why would they be in your closet? And you're trying to answer these questions actively for them. But that curiosity that children have and that spirit that they have with them, if you can keep that as an adult in the creative industry, where you're really almost annoyingly so unpacking and asking
Yeah.
why 1,000 times, um, you can get to ultimately, I think, very interesting outcomes because you're leading yourself down paths that you probably haven't explored because you don't have the answers from your past experience.
That is so if we could bottle that, like, naivety in the world, that's like a creative elixir, right? That would be amazing. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, oh, I absolutely love that. I was hanging out with my nephew last weekend, and one of his toys was upside down, and instead of turning it the right way up, he went upside down. Like, brilliant. That's a concept in itself. But
It's
I
amazing.
saw a talk last week, from the creative director at Philips, and he invented, the kind of like team building thing where you have marshmallows and spaghetti sticks and you have to build a structure. He invented that, and he said that the team that he's done it all over the world, loads of different groups. The team that always wins is like kindergarten kids because they don't have politics, like who's gonna lead, who's gonna build, who's gonna oversee and quality control. They just crack on and make something weird and it stays up the longest. I just think it's such a fantastic, like, story for that.
Yeah, um, their understanding of the rules that or the parameters of that we put in place as adults a lot of times, or the societal parameters that we like fall into, or the roles that we follow into, don't exist to them. And so therefore the results are endlessly fascinating, because they don't see the need to adhere to the codes that have been developed. And that honestly, having kids has been, like I said, just such a transformative moment for me in my creative career, but just also keeps me always reminding myself to kind of think like a 3-year-old chief creative officer, you know?
Nice, I love that. Have you, out of interest, like, I know it's kind of like a cliche that you might start a workshop with, Play-Doh or Lego or no laptops. Does that anything like that, have you ever found that worked to kinda get off your laptop and think differently?
I I'm I don't know if you can tell by my background, but I love books. I am 100% in the camp of not starting on your laptop. Um, I find that going to uh, places, whether it's a museum or whether it is diving in headfirst to your library, going to your local your actual public libraries, um, finding books online that interest you. Um, I think the serendipity that occurs when you pull a book about Coco Chanel and you pull um, a book from your favorite author, Chuck Palahniuk, or you are reading kind of Where the Sidewalk Ends, and then you happen to be looking at the work of the Designers Republic, and then you went to a show and saw Kusama, whatever it is. Those inputs are far more interesting that you've gone through experientially to inform what you're about to create than whatever you could find that already exists on the internet that somebody else scanned or brought into the internet world, right? So like Pinterest, Instagram, etc., right? These are all just things that have already existed. Your job is to pull from your experiences, your knowledge, understand the problems you're solving, and then to create something unique based on all of that. And I think that for me, that input of all the experiences and the way that you interpret those inputs mixed also with I sketch a lot in my notebook. My daughter has sketched all over the front of this one, but
Cute.
I sketch in my notebook because it helps me get ideas out very quickly. It can be a letter form, it can be a thought, a note that I just want to sketch down quickly. It could be, 2 lines with an annotation. Whatever it is, that helps me get my thinking down and creates clarity faster so that when then I want to go use the tools, I can make um, things much more quickly and much
Yeah.
more informed by a variety of inputs that aren't, you know, stuff that exists out there in the world already.
But I'll finish on a biggie. Um, what change do you wish you could make in your role? And you have and you will make such incredible change to the businesses that you touch. Do you have a dream brief that would make the impact you want in the world?
I don't have a dream brief. Generally, I think that great clients equal great work. So I think, the best clients, they don't really have to be encouraged to be brave. They, again, just have that instinctively. And maybe they have questions that they need my expertise on or situations that they want me to handle. But, I don't necessarily believe in having a dream brief because I feel, at least I've found that clients, when we have shared goals and kind of shared values or shared interests, those are the best relationships to be in. But I think that's the same if like, in friendships, in life, in your family, right? If you have kind of shared goals, interests, values, those feel the most fruitful. So I feel like that's
Yeah.
the same with client relationships and briefs. But gosh, such a hard question. I'd love to see maybe people creating more things for people. Like I'd like to be creating more things for people, um, more things for communities that need support of design and creativity, more fun things, more frivolous things. Not everything has to be so serious. I feel like sometimes, the seriousness of society has gotten to a point where it's just like it's still okay for it to just be like fun and frivolous at times,
Yeah.
right? Not everything has to have this insane purpose to change the world. Um, I think I want to create more things that people love, more things that they want to have in their lives, not just another product or experience or piece of technology that, is profitable, but something that's desirable. Um, I'd love to have more time to craft things since we've talked about that.
As in
Care
making?
Just having that kind of time to really be thoughtful and intentional and put care into the things that we're putting into the world. Not just looking for kind of instant reward systems everywhere, I suppose, but really questioning, being curious about your role, what you're contributing, what you're creating, um, and how people will respond to that. And so I think, it's not maybe a one singular goal or multiple goals, but maybe that's just kind of a general approach that I would love to see myself and others take over the next kind of couple years because I think I think the world needs that sense of kind of care and compassion and love and thoughtfulness.
That's really nice. It's a great answer, and yeah, it really speaks to me. More fun and frivolity is always welcome. Amazing. Well, thank you. I've really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much, Thomas. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, Daisy. And if there's anything, of course, that we didn't cover, we can have a part two, of course, anytime you wish.
I mean, I've got loads of questions, so careful what you wish for.